Hi, everyone, and welcome to AI Simplified. I'm Allie,
I'm Phil.
And I'm Amjad.
and we're your podcast hosts. Today, we're going to be chatting about some really important aspects of AI, all the non human powers. So, this may seem like a simple topic, and many would assume AI powers are all non human, but are they? So, let's get started. Amjad, tell us, what are the non-human powers of AI?
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting topic. The last time when we were chatting, we were kind of differentiating between uh, narrow AI, that is the age or era of AI where we are in, where we talked a lot about that, hey, for a specific task, the AI of today has gained competence, really, really amazing competence. Uh, uh, but I don't want us to think about that. Well, that means that AI is not powerful today, right? In contrast to the future of general intelligence, whether artificial general intelligence, super intelligence. So even the narrow AI of today is very, very powerful in many aspects. That's what we are going to today explore and unpack and what have you. So let's start. Let's start with all those non-human powers of AI. So just to start with, it is always on. So whatever it is that it is doing, uh, by design, it does not have to go back home at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever people's favorite time of going back home is. And from a meaningful perspective, since the world that we live in is very sort of 24/7 in nature and global in nature and what have you. So the fact that the narrow AI can go on to continue to do its work, whatever the work it may be, and make the decisions that it needs to, and then learn from the new data that is coming in. So that is a hugely powerful feature. It while using this analogy of people in terms of working and enjoying and sleeping, kind of sometimes we divide the day into 8 hour 3 8 hour chunks and what have you. The AI kind of have those analogies too. The beauty is it can do all those three things, or two things, because it's not sentient today. Luckily, which we'll also talk about a little bit later. Now I'm getting ahead of myself. But in terms of the uh, doing the work and then getting better at what it needs to do with new learning, it can do that in parallel, and it can do that nonstop compared to people where we, for certain things, we have to do them sequentially. We can work or sleep, and they're all important things. So I think that is when we just say it's always on, it seems like, trivial, a cliche thing to say, but it really is more meaningful than that. And the fact that you can have so many different manifestations and instantiations of AI, meaning you can have many different instances or copies running, in different environments. And the fact that then it is always on, and then whatever it is doing, working and getting better at working both at the same time, I think that uh, is one of its non-human uh, powers, which again is very early in being explored and exploited. So this whole explore exploit curve of new technologies with AI or narrow AI still in early days. So the businesses and companies are still in very early stages. So we always kind of talk to each other about that. Hey, so what does it mean for a business? So in this case, again, uh, any journey starts with a simple step of assessing where you are standing at the moment. So, in this context, a good sort of question would be, do we have within our business some AI software, some AI agent that is always on and doing what it needs to do? And if not, then how should we think about getting there? And if we already have an example, then what are the next several use cases to go there? Uh, so that's my favorite, one of my favorite sort of uh, non-human powers of the AI today. What do you guys think?
I mean, I would love to not have to sleep and, just work 24/7 with no dip in capacity, brain capacity.
Absolutely. That's certainly a non-human power for sure. For I'm dead for a business leader and that's looking to learn more about AI and the types of data that AI uses. Can you talk a little bit about the data, different types of data in AI?
Yeah, so I think there are several sort of on this chart that we were showing, there were several things that are data related that we perhaps can just combine in one sort of conversation. And so we as people are limited to the type of data we can sense and we can perceive. So the AI is not limited by that. So we can engineer the AI of today to uh, sense and perceive information way outside of the human capabilities. So I'll give some practical examples. It's not easy for us as people to sense and perceive business data, the data with a lot of numbers. We are visual creatures. So when the data have a lot of abstract numbers, prices, sales, shipments, orders, whatever, right? Uh, Supplies, demands, all kind of attribute richness. Uh, AI can be engineered and trained to sense that data, perceive that data, see patterns in that data. And it can be very highly dimensional data. So we even the senses that we have, while it's we are pretty high dimensional as well. When you start combining, seeing and hearing and touch and smell and all that other fun stuff. But AI has no practical limitations in that sense. So that is certainly a pretty big non-human power. Now, one thing that I foresee in terms of the next 3 to 5 to 7 kind of year time horizon is on this whole sensory modality, perceptual sort of computing front. Uh, AI and uh, people to come together and sort of a positive cyborgy type story where we are able to have extra senses. Uh, so here's a funny thing about uh, human brain. Uh, First of all, why are we again talking about human brain? Because our podcast is all about a human-centered artificial intelligence, and this point is going to become clearer and clearer, as we go in these conversations deeply. So, we as people, the way our brain is wired, if we feed it more senses, more sensory data, it has the power to start perceiving it, and it has the power to start giving it meaning. So today, in different labs, uh, all kind of experiments are being done to add more sensory modalities to us as people. So for example, we have a lot of skin surface area, and not all of it, is used by brain all the time. So part of it can be used as we are getting into this wearable computing age for extra senses. I'll just give a very fun, nerdy example. So there are sort of add-ons, or not surgical add-ons, so just add-ons. Think of it just as a smartwatch that can help teach the brain to become a GPS and compass. It starts sending a signal about north, south, and east and west. And before you know it, our mind is trained. We know, we are consciously aware of, okay, I am looking at southeast. And if you check the instrument and stuff, you say, spot on. So uh, a point that I'm going to also make there real quick there is, if you look at the way our neocortex of a human mind, a human brain is, you will say, well, it's just one sheet, which is few centimeters in thickness, and it is just folded in an interesting geometry to fit into our skull. But you examine the neocortex, you say, pretty much, it looks the same everywhere. And it does, which means there are no special algorithms going on. Whatever all those, neurons are, billions of them in our neocortex, they are doing the exact same thing. So that means, if the part, that is of the neocortex that is being used to see, if we start sending it some other data, it will start learning that data as well. So bringing it back to sort of the simplicity theme, it looks like even in our brain, it's just one algorithm, one, not two, not three, not 500. It looks like it's only one algorithm. However, the sensory data is where the intelligence is, and how it is coded and modulated and how it is fed is where a lot of intelligence is. But then, when it goes there to its area, it's just using one algorithm. So that is a very powerful concept. Narrow AI can sense a lot more. And then as we make its algorithm, its perceptual algorithms better and better, just think about the possibilities. And now if we combine that with us as people, whether extra senses, whether through smart glasses or what have you, it's a concept that uh, Andy Clark and David Chalmers, they call it extended mind, that we are now sort of extending our mind because we are able to sense a lot more, we are able to perceive a lot more. Uh, and that I find fascinating, that only in the next 3 to 5 years, we would be able to sense more, perceive more as the uh, narrow AI and people come together through loose coupling, through non-surgical coupling. We are not talking about anything being inserted in the body or the brain. We are just talking about some add-ons, that we can have, and then we can put them back on and whatever, or whatever those add-ons happen to be, to extend our mental capabilities. So that, I think, is the part, Phil, where all the this extra sort of sensory and perceptual capability that AI today has. So it's an exponential story. It's a non-human capability, but you can bring it to people and help extend their minds. So it's not as if that only AI can do that extra sensory, perceptual stuff. If we couple it right, we have amazing perceptual capability as people to perceive a lot more. There's a lot of bandwidth there. You know, as Richard Feynman used to say, there's a lot of room at the bottom. We'll explore that concept in future episodes in the context of quantum computing and other things. But uh, we have an amazing capability to enhance ourselves. And I find that fascinating, Phil and Ali, you know, that it is just around the corner, and these non-human capabilities are going to become extensions of us as humans. Um, so yeah, exciting times.
I'm curious though, for people that aren't innately, familiar with AI, should they start with human capabilities and go, oh, and just add on the time component. Oh, if I could only do this for 24 hours straight. Here I take a human trait and then I multiply it by time. Or what would you say is the best starting place for people that aren't sure how they could utilize AI or what it could do for them and how it could work with humans, whether they start with the human capability or they start with the AI capability, to envision, that exponential growth.
Yeah. So I think if we just for a minute uh, talk from the perspective of consumers, I think consumers are going to be, very pleasantly surprised and in a lot of luck because a lot of tech companies around the world, they are working, Ali, at making uh, devices and solutions and apps where in the next 3 to 5 years, we will stop using the term AI. AI is going to be everywhere in our phone, in our smart watch, in our wearable computing and whatnot. So I think for consumers, all they have to do just do is, as Mark Twain said, 85% of the job is just showing up. Just show up to the party and enjoy, all these new choices that become available. So I think for, consumers, I really see that as a very positive story. Some consumers are going to be in a lot more luck in the next 3, 5 to 10 years. So if I am, have some uh, disability or what have you, my hearing, is impaired, my vision is impaired or whatnot, uh, AI is going to help me with my quality of life, quite a bit in terms of sort of filling whatever that cognitive gap is that I am running into. If I'm a business user working in a company, I am just going to have a lot more sort of sensory perception about my business. So we will, in few years, joke about reports and dashboards and things like that when we start visualizing business data in a whole different way. So I think your question uh, for the design of these things, what those skills are and that kind of thing, we can focus on it in another conversation. But in terms of just the user of it, I think whether the use is business or the use is, entertainment or pleasure or relaxation, I think AI is going to enhance the quality of life in a very meaningful way, and its impact will be felt the same way that internet and uh, automobiles and all other things, space exploration. I mean, we developed so many technologies because we wanted to go to space, and now we are using them in our household, and they are bringing joy and comfort and whatnot. So Another thing that I'll say about data, and I will move on to other non-human powers of AI, is that we are living through this pandemic, and it and it's not the last time we are going to hear about a virus that kind of puts everybody at notice, kind of a thing, right? Uh, these viruses are going to continue to mutate and whatnot, and there is this natural selection mechanism at work. AIs can be very helpful in predicting the future mutations that are more likely, future variations that are more likely, and how they're going to potentially hit us, and how to have, you know, a public health policy, vaccinations, and other things that can help against, you know, as rail guards for the future such uh, events, episodes, that kind of a thing. So yeah, no. So I think the business of data is just super duper, Phil, exciting. So and now we also have seen that how uh, you actually, it can help augment uh, our capabilities as people. I'm sure that we have seen with uh, those smart prosthetics where people get these smart artificial limbs, and they are able to operate them with their brain waves, with some of their muscle interaction and whatnot, as if it's a real extension of their arm and what have you. Very, very early days of all of it. So a lot of exciting stuff, uh, a lot of exciting stuff down the road. So if I'm a normal business user, if I'm a normal consumer, Ali, quite honestly, I just have to bring my human creativity to the table. So I think my human creativity, my consciousness as a person, coupled with the AI, that is a exponential outcome.
Awesome. One of the things that I noticed, Amjad, on the slide was that in comparing humans to AI is not subjective. Could you walk us through what that means for you and what that means for businesses?
Yeah. So I think if you want to bring that slide back up. So I think the point there is that uh, the AI today is not conscious uh, the way we as people. I mean, we are conscious, thus we exist. I think that is kind of what Descartes said, when he said that I think, therefore I am, kind of a thing. So today, for us as people, consciousness is this quality of felt experience. It feels something to be us, right? So we, have these contents of consciousness. We are self-aware. We can reflect on that, and then, it feels like something, right? The pain feels in a certain way. It feels real, right? The redness of a rose, that redness of a color, it feels like something, right? There is a subjective, first person, private experience, right? That feels very, much our own, right? We feel, you know, sense of agency, sense of ownership, and in-body, sort of experience. Uh, so we are creatures capable of joy and pain, and with that come a lot of ethical and moral obligations. Luckily, the AI of today is not conscious in that sense. Uh, and the moment it becomes conscious in some artificial sense, but passes some Turing test for consciousness, well, then all kind of ethical questions that apply to people of, joy and, pain and, suffering, uh, and quality of life, it would apply to the AI as well. You can't just, turn it on and turn it off at will and say, oh, go do my slave work, and I'm going to send you to some sort of, hazardous environment, and you're going to die at the end of that mission, and and that is, so the moment these beings are conscious and sentient, a lot of other issues come, because we are conscious beings, and uh, we want to treat other conscious beings with the same way we want to treat ourselves. Hopefully, in some other discussion, we can talk about animals on planet Earth who are also conscious, but we don't grant them the status of consciousness, right? So if we think about just how, and I'm not making a political statement, how animals are treated on planet Earth, and they are conscious beings. They feel joy, suffering. Their language is not all that great, and I get it that they are handicapped and they are trapped in their bodies, but they are conscious. Uh, so it's like it's good for the machines that they are not conscious at this stage, because we as people don't have a good track record of treating other conscious beings, fairly and respectfully and whatnot. So somebody said the other day that uh, today 98% of the biomass on planet Earth are people and our sort of pets and whatnot, and our cattle. And it is interesting that more than 90% of that biomass is actually our cattle, not us. But anyways, so I think it is good that these machines today, they are not conscious. So that means they can perform that work without feeling good about it, without feeling bad about it, without having any feeling about it, without having any reflective thought about it and whatnot. But that is coming down the road, right? So that is not avoidable. Eventually, they will have those extra feedback loops and stuff where uh, we would be able to engineer consciousness in those machines too. So I today feel good that these machines are not conscious. However, there is this whole emphasis on uh, people want the machines, whether I'm an elderly person and I live by myself and I don't have anybody to take care of myself, and I need a social interaction, because we are loopy social creatures. So there I want my social companion at home to be sentient. Some people want to have relationships with their AI, and for that they want AI to be conscious, right? But I think today it is it's awesome that we haven't figured that out yet. So I know that I'm being ironical here a little bit. And these machines, for quite a while, they are not going to be conscious. So then many of these questions will not enter into sort of the playbook, and it would give us time to figure a lot of these things out. One other point that I'll make here is AI at some level, the whole AI mission and project is us as people reverse engineering our own minds. So AI is an attempt to see how can we reverse engineer ourselves. Like, we say that competence without comprehension is a big theme that is going to be talked about again and again in this conversation. So we are intelligent, and so we can say that without being funny. And we are conscious, sentient beings. Whether we are intelligent or not, we are definitely sentient, conscious beings. We don't know how. We are. We have a lot of competence around it, no comprehension. So at some level, AI is a project to reverse engineer all of that. So on intelligence front, we have made a lot of progress, and over the next 10 to 20 years, we'll be making a lot more progress. One good news, Phil and Ali, on the consciousness front, since we have no clue what gives rise to consciousness in our brains. So hence we are that whole, artificial consciousness and all the uh, pros and cons and the joys and sorrows and the good and the bad that it is going to bring to the table. Hopefully, it's further, way further out. But one day it will come. We will have sentient beings with us. So today, totally cool. We can have an autonomous AI agent, and without feeling guilty, we can send it to a nuclear reactor to fix some stuff. And if in the process it gets destroyed, it is not going to feel a thing. Or we send it to Mars, it's not going to feel lonely, or whatever it is. But the moment it is conscious, it's going to say, you send me to Mars. I'm pretty lonely here. And you'll say, well, we sent you another rover buddy. Now there are two of you. You guys can talk to each other. You don't have to feel lonely. So that is a little bit further out. So anyway, so hence in that sense, I consider that the AI of today do not have a subjective experience and a private first person conscious existence. That is a blessing for them and us. So look, it's my favorite topic. Consciousness is one of my favorite topics. So you got me started, Phil, on that.
But do you think that in the interim, until AI beings have more consciousness, that we will just impose feedback loops to kind of have mock consciousness or like variations? I'm thinking particularly of self-driving cars, having to understand when, prioritize when they should turn right or left if something's in its way. Because that is a sense of consciousness, or a sense, but not necessarily full consciousness.
Yeah, no, I think this is now you bring, Ali, a very important point, which is sort of, it now is at a boundary of engineering, science, philosophy, physics, all of that in the following sense. So let's say you have your, some machine that you are working with, your car's computer, and the computer, gets to know you. You guys start talking to each other, and let's say that we are just mimicking that uh, intelligent sentient behavior in uh, in that computer, in that software. But the moment your mind feels that you are talking to somebody who also has a mind, you're going to, be careful in terms of your interactions, and you're going to think that they are a mind even when they are not. So I think you're right that a lot of good things can be done where the machine is actually not conscious, but it is giving the appearance that it is. And then as a result, we behave in a certain way. I have seen some experiments done where, you would, this uh, Roomba, this cleaning sort of device robot in homes. So
Do you have one, Amjad?
I do. But some of my robotic engineering friends have done clever enhancements and modifications to their Roombas, where they talk to their Roomba, and then if they kick it, it screams.
No,
And it has
no.
no, yeah, very. It has an amazing effect because the moment it starts doing things like that, it can regulate our brain. So you kick a piece of machine and it starts screaming in a people like fashion. Well, you are going to have uh, an impact, right? So a lot of our brain is just unconscious. We don't have any control. We cannot say, hey, when I kick my Roomba and it starts screaming, don't feel anything. It is going to feel anything. Like in our episode 1, we saw those dress and colors. We changed the conditions. There was no way you could tell your brain, don't see this, don't see that, see this, see that. We had no control. In 1 second, we saw the gold and white. In another second, we experienced, blue and black, and then we went back to the gold and white. So same thing, so these things can regulate our brains. So I think the so it's coming. I think it's going to be, you can create awesome experiences. You can solve a lot of societal problems, because we as creatures, we are getting lonely. People need more meaningful social interaction, and all that good stuff. And the fact that these machines only mimic consciousness, so we have not even designed mimicking consciousness. But that is, I think, like 10 years out kind of a thing. I think that alley would be very powerful. But then it is also alley, a slippery slope,
Yeah.
because if something appears conscious, is mimicking consciousness, is behaviorally no different than how people interact, then how do we feel about, you know, inflicting some harm on this device that we think is not conscious but is behaving conscious? And as we continue to evolve those capabilities, when and how would we know that now they are not mimicking, they are really conscious, they are really feeling something? There is somebody home. It feels like something to be inside that machine, and that kind of thing. So it brings a lot of very, interesting questions. It is slippery slope. But I'm totally with you that we are going in that direction where the human-like capabilities of the narrow AI is going to increase. There is a huge demand uh, for it. Like for example, if the silly GPS system in the car, have some sentient like mimicking going on, I think it will just make, and you can have, fun, silly conversation while, you're talking about directions and stuff. I think it is just fun, right? So there's a lot of demand for many use cases like that. So it is coming.
Yeah, it seems like because it's so uncommon, people are caught off guard or delighted when they have an interaction that is unexpected. Like if my Roomba, I don't have Roomba, but if my Roomba uh, screamed at me after I kicked it, I would be shocked. Like, or when sometimes, a Siri or, an assistant responds with something funny, you're caught off guard, like, oh, did they, did they know what I was saying?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that is how we all can regulate each other's brains. Uh, we as people, and then the moment we give machines even mimicking capabilities like that. So think about our brain. It is, you know, in a skull, in a dark place. It has a hard time figuring out what's going on. So the moment you feed it the signals that it has seen previously and have attributed to humans and other conscious beings and stuff, it is going to behave, in that exact same way. And I think we can design those experiences in a way that net net it would be good for everybody.
Yep, for sure. Today, Amjad, we've talked a lot about a lot of different non-human powers of AI. From your perspective, what do you feel this means for people, for businesses, and also just our society as a whole?
Yeah, no, I think so. Uh, I'll just use some examples here. So today, uh, the AI of today does not have the uh, biological limitations. So, which means, you know, we can send it to places and environments where we can't go. I mean, so all the uh, space exploration or deep sea exploration or just many different uh, engineering tasks, whether geological or mining or uh, civil engineering or what have you. Uh, I think uh, AI and robotics combined are uh, really, suitable for doing a lot of those tasks which are very difficult for people to do. And I think people then can be uh, uh, trainers and users or beneficiaries of these systems. Uh, at some level, we as sentient beings are looking for meaning in life. Like, we work is a big part of people's life for most chunks uh, of their biological life, and people need more meaning in their lives more than ever. I sincerely believe, Phil, that AI can help bring more meaning and joy, whether I am a consumer or I am a business user. Because at some level, a company or an organization is nothing other than a, a way to organize people around a certain mission or goals and objectives, right? So if the achieving of that mission, those goals and objectives, uh, we are giving people much better tools, thinking about these AI as tools, I think it's going to make that job more meaningful, more joyful. The human counterpart who's going to use that tool is going to explore her or his creativity a lot more, and the combined outcome would be awesome. Other thing that the uh, uh, other non-human sort of powers of AI that are very beneficial or can be very beneficial is, since in many cases, in many use cases, the AI does not need to have a body. That means it can go from one place to the next almost at speed of light, and all kind of uh, digital replications, instantiations, uh, possibilities are there, which we today as people, we cannot offload our consciousness yet into a digital computer and say, okay, I'm going to show up on the other side of planet Earth. To us, it would take, a 20-hour flight, but AI is not limited by that. So now the fact that, you can design these AIs where if it needs a body or something like a body, then thinking about an AI is an AI that is right next to us. Uh, if it does not need a body, then it could be an AI that we are living in. So if a whole company is an AI and we are part of that company, then we are kind of living within that AI. Or it can just live in its own abstract virtual universe, which we can interact with through that sensory coupling and integration that we talked about early on. The beauty, Phil, is everything that we talked about today is the engineering reality of today. So we have the science and engineering of it today, which means, and then you apply it to the exponential curve that science and engineering is on, then you give it another 5 years, 10 years, its effect is going to be very noticeable. So, and that part, that to me is like hugely exciting, that there would be a lot of meaning and joy that uh, these non-human features of AI will bring to our sentient, conscious human life. And I would say once again, thank God we today don't know what consciousness is or how to reverse engineer it. And hence we are decades away from making these machines conscious. It's a good thing because it avoids a whole set of ethical, moral, philosophical uh, problems for us. And hopefully, by the time we will be dealing with them, we will be a lot more mentally equipped and prepared to deal with them.
So we don't have to feel bad about working our AI team 24/7 for many years.
They don't today, they have no feeling, they don't have any inner private life, no inner first person subjective experience. The way we feel that there is somebody home, there is nobody home there. So it is just a fancy tool. Uh, and we can combine those tools to create very interesting architectures and extend businesses, extend our own capabilities as people, or both. And that is the beauty and power. Look, I mean, if you think about uh, if organizations are a smart collection of people, and we as people, what it is that we do, we sense, we perceive, we think, we take decisions based upon what our thinking, we take actions. So if all of those capabilities get augmented and enhanced, this kind of extended mind concept, then I think we are winning, and we don't have to wait for uh, that whole era down the road of super intelligence and artificial general intelligence. There's a lot that can be done today. And to me, that is very exciting because that is then extending our human capabilities, our human reach. And then again, now you can see clearly why I'm so excited about human-centered AI. I think in this discussion, we have been a lot more human-centered because these technologies can be coupled with, you know, uh, how our sensory and perceptual apparatus works. We bring, you always talk about, okay, what do different parties bring to the table? So we bring consciousness to the table. So we have a mind. We know there is a universe in which we exist, right? And then the AI that we are designing is bringing all these wonderful non-human capabilities, but they don't have consciousness. So I think together, you know, we are creating sort of, a augmented sort of, using Nietzsche's language, Übermensch human, and I'm using that term very lovingly. I'm not using the what Nietzsche meant by Übermensch. It's a term that I like. One other thing that I'll also just quickly point out is that um, what we have talked in episode 1 and episode 2, uh, there are a few names that I would like to mention. So I am a big student and fan of the work of the philosopher Daniel Dennett. So a lot of what I said up till now comes from Daniel Dennett's work and philosophy. A few other names that I have mentioned, I'll mention again. So Andy Clark and Dave Chalmers, they uh, amongst other things, they are the proponents of this topic of extended mind. So we can now see how we have talked about extended mind in this conversation. Uh, uh, then I will mention Yosha Bach as well. So he is a AI computer scientist, cognitive science philosopher. I take a lot of inspiration from his work as well. So we will as these conversations go, we will mention some names and whatnot. Uh, we will in future episodes we'll talk about uh, other forms of intelligences, alien intelligences, and uh, the fun American topic, UFOs and ufology and things. But again, very much in the context of what does it mean for myself, for my business. So not in some other funny sense. You know, we'll talk about, we'll bring concepts like aliens and supervised learning all together. I think, Phil, in our next episode, probably it is safe for me to say, that will focus more on what is deep supervised learning, because that is truly, the when you look at the AI, what we call AI today, it is, from a methods perspective, it is deep supervised learning. So I think we'll dedicate a chat on what is deep supervised learning, uh, how to think about that, how to do deep supervised learning in your uh, organization, how to build those types of capabilities. So I think the message from a business perspective for today's chat is, uh, we talked about all these non-human uh, capabilities of AI today. So I think for our audience, it would be good to think about, are we talking about those things within our business? Or do we have, as an organization, self-awareness about these capabilities? Do we have a systematic way to explore and exploit these capabilities? What is our competition doing about it? Uh, and things like that, right? And again, as we say, baby steps, start small, one day at a time, one step at a time. Start where the data, in terms of its uh, cleanliness, its depth, its width, it meets all that threshold where you can do a lot of deep supervised learning to solve some interesting problems. But hopefully, this chat is very fun, and it's also very informative. And we are asking questions that you generally don't hear, uh, and we are asking them in a very human-centered way. Uh, we are not compromising on the sort of the intellectual uh, sort of depth of the conversation, but we are not talking technical mumbo jumbo. So we are, I think, uh, hopefully, that is what comes across.
Phil and I are definitely not technical mumbo jumbos. You are, but that's what we're bringing your knowledge to everybody.
Maybe by episode 50.
Maybe by episode 50. Yeah, I think so. And I don't know how I feel about aliens, but I'm looking forward to the conversation. That's for sure.
It'll definitely be an interesting one. So thank you everyone for listening to our podcast today on non-human powers of AI. I very much look forward to our next episode 3 on deep learning. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Thank you, everybody. Cheers.